Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Friday, the 14th of July. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning once again by Joshua Barry. How are we getting on, Joshua?
Yeah, good, Derek. Lots to talk about this morning, isn't there? No struggles for show notes, so looking forward to getting into it.
Absolutely. It looks like you're wearing a fleece there. Is it that cold in Glasgow?
It's not, but I started work early and I put it on and I haven't thought about it until you mentioned it. So it's not warm. It's not warm ever since the weather a couple months ago or a month ago, Derek. It hasn't been warm, but yeah, not too cold.
Yeah, it's a tad grey and gloomy down here in Warrington as well. Just for the daily sweep, of course, folks, congratulations to the following for getting it spot on. I think we've been on time every single day of this week, which must be a first, Joshua. Absolutely sensational stuff. So well done to Lewis Simon. He goes on the nose today, 9:30 start time. Grant McAdam also got it spot on, as did Macca. Billy McCulloch as well, 9:30 a.m. Derek on point, absolutely. And my namesake also got it spot on, 9:30 he went for. So congratulations, each and every one of you. Cyber pint to you all. Right, let's talk Rangers, Joshua. Lots to talk about in terms of transfers. And I know there was a few grumblings of late because there hasn't been many outgoings, but it now looks like we're going to see a number of players possibly departing the club. We'll start with Antonio Colak. First of all, news emerging last night that Parma are set to sign the Croatian for £2.5 million. Parma are now in Serie B and are looking to snap up Antonio Colak. Rangers would get a six-figure profit on Colak on the money they paid PAOK Salonika last summer, £1.8 million they paid the Greek side. So Parma about to prize him away from Ibrox for £2.5 million, 29 years of age, of course. Antonio Colak scored 18 goals from 39 appearances last season. But it's certainly with the players that have arrived at Ibrox, there was a bit of debate, it's fair to say, about whether his future would lie elsewhere and the opportunities that would be afforded to him next season. And it now looks like he's on his way to Italy. £2.5 million, I've got to say, Joshua, I'm quite happy with that figure. I'm a bit torn at losing Antonio Colak. I've got to say, I think he could have done a job next season against the likes of teams who come to Ibrox and play that low block. 18 goals last season, given that he was injured for parts of it, is a great return. I'm sure he would have hit 20 goals plus next season. So Rangers are losing that out the door. But I guess if the money is going to be used elsewhere on another striker, which I imagine it would be, I think it's maybe a good deal all round.
Yeah, I think Rangers need to be aggressive, don't they? Because you could say, I guess it extends to Sakala as well, that there's desirable traits there. But Rangers need to look at their squad from last season and look at where they fell short and why they fell short, and obviously try and make those gains in every single area. And if you're making money across that, the duo of Sakala and Colak, I think Colak's much further forward than Sakala, to perhaps fund in someone else coming in, whether that's directly or just helping for the remainder of the transfers. I think that's good business. Colak, I got a quote here, Derek, from when Beale was actually asked about Colak towards the end of last season, and he said, he was saying that he had a future here, and you've got to say that as a manager, don't you? Because it also drives the price up probably. And he says he wants his strikers involved in every minute of the game. I like the forwards to not be in one position, but to interchange, move around, and have a lot of freedom. And we're going to do myself and Johnny, a members video looking in more detail at the numbers behind Sakala and Colak's performances and maybe why this has come up. But I think off the bat, you've certainly got to say that you're right. Colak scored, I've not got his XG to hand, but he overperformed his XG quite considerably, especially in the first half of the season. He didn't actually play loads of minutes per goal. It's not as if he was a starting striker for the entirety of the season. But now you've got a different situation, and I'm going to just take this banner away so I can put up a couple of images to show this. Beale's changed his front two, and again, we're going to speak about this later, to play more of a 4-3-1-2 as opposed to playing one central striker. So you can see here, this is a game against Kilmarnock, and Colak and Sakala actually played quite well together when they played. That's the funny thing. you can see here Colak and Sakala, they're playing down the sides of a back three. The middle player in a back three doesn't have anyone to mark. If it's the start of the season, Colak's right on that middle centre back. He's playing as a traditional number 9. He's not hold-up player. I don't think he's not a really physical player who's always going to get you up the pitch. But he does have a lot of desirable attributes, which is why, he was signed last season. You cash him back to those Champions League games. But Beale's changed, as mentioned, the function of those front two, and they have to contribute a lot more in all aspects of play. I've got another example here from a game against Hibs, and you can see with Colak, that little, bubble behind his head shows Rangers front three again with Kent as the deepest player, that free line number 10 that we've seen evolve under Beale. Colak's blocking that pass into Stevenson at left back. And this is actually just before Sakala goes and scores what I think was his first goal of the game. It was the one where he intercepts from the keeper and fantastic turn and finish. The point being here to show that the wide forwards have a lot of defensive responsibility at points as well. Now, Colak's a hard worker. I don't think you could hold that against him at all. But perhaps what he doesn't have, and again, we'll get to this in the members video this afternoon when we speak about it in more depth, outside of those impressive box numbers, he doesn't have really the ability, I think, to create for others. He's not going to be able to outplay on his own. And I think if you compare that to someone like Dessers, Derek, he's pretty solid across the board. He can carry the ball. He can finish on either foot. He can pick the ball up out wide and score. And obviously the heavily linked Danilo as well, I think, has quite a lot to his game. We've spoken continually this summer about Beale wanting hybrid players who can offer you different solutions in games. And you're right. I think Colak, it's not as if Colak can't play in his system, but I think there'll be players probably that are better suited to his system. And if you can be aggressive in the transfer market, get a decent fee for those two combined compared to what you paid for them. And let's be honest, compared to the amount of minutes they're going to play this season coming up or would have played, then I think you can look at it and see the logic behind it and see that it's a good deal.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, as I mentioned earlier on, I like Antonio. I think he had a part to play next season, but it's whether he wants to be a bit part player, I guess, at a squad. Yeah. He did say after the St Mirren game last season that he wants to be the number 9, the main man, and I think he will be that at Parma. Certainly as I remember Parma growing up, Rangers, the two famous matches against them, and they had guys that were just absolutely unbelievable superstars at the time, but obviously a fall from grace. But they're relying on, obviously, Antonio Colak to fire them back into Serie A. Maybe he can become their Hernan Crespo or something like that. But I think he'll score goals for them, Joshua. I think that's a good move for Antonio.
Yeah. He obviously he's kind of scored wherever he's went, and you look at his performance at the start of the season, and especially that he had that trademark finish across the keeper from the right hand side, didn't he, into the far corner. You think of the goal, I think it was a Ross County scored that kind of bicycle kick scored against PSV from that area. Dundee United, really prolific, and that was a type of finish that he obviously, I think he opened, was his first or second. I think it was his first when he turned Balogun in that game all the way back when we first kind of became aware of him. But to compare it to another player, I've seen a couple of comments there talking about Sima, Abdullah Sima, who we're going to have a scout report on next week, and we'll have a members video as well, kind of looking a bit more in detail at him. I think you can see with him, he's a wide forward. He's going to play off the right. But again, he gives you a lot. He gives you stuff outside of goals. Really strong runner in transition. I think his movement's really good, and that's probably his best trait, his movement, kind of cutting in off the right-hand side. And he's going to give you those numbers as well as hopefully contributing outside of open play. Obviously, kind of took the Europa League a little bit by storm a couple of seasons ago when he came up against Rangers as well. But he just feels like more of that Beale style of player because of the areas, again, to go back to those screen grabs that Rangers front two are normally going to play as a front two, as a wide front two, and it'll be flexible and it'll be fluid. But Beale wants his forwards involved, and reading the quote there, having the ability to interchange, to move around, and have a lot of freedom. And therefore, I think you need players that suit that. Not maybe players that can do that, but players that are going to thrive in that environment. Which I think the likes of Sima and Dessers and Lammers, maybe a little bit deeper, they fit into that profile a bit better.
Yeah, let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in. Alan Hall says, on Colak, he'd be 5th choice. Highly doubt he'd get much game time. Peak time to sell the 29-year-old. And Mark also agrees, moving Colak on is a no-brainer. He gets lost in games too often. Right, folks, another player who could be departing Ibrox maybe Robbie McCrorie. This is news that broke yesterday, where Robbie McCrorie has held crunch talks with Michael Beale over his Ibrox future. It's understood that he's made it clear he sees his career progressing away from his boyhood heroes following the arrival of Jack Butland from Crystal Palace. Of course, McCrorie was given a number of games last season in the closing stages and did well. Only conceded 1 goal against Hibs, of course, in 6 games I think he's played in, or 7 games in all in his Rangers career, which is not bad going. But McCrorie, it's believed, is now poised to quit the club and look for first-team football elsewhere. It's believed that Rangers could be expected to land a fee in the region of £500,000 should he move on. Robbie McCrorie then potentially moving on, Joshua. Snecky Bear says, so who will be our number 2 goalie? Robbie McCrorie leaving, is that... I can understand why he would want to move elsewhere. He's 25 years of age now. Jack Butland isn't coming up to Rangers to sit on the bench, so I'd imagine the best McCrorie could possibly get would be cup games, unless Butland has an absolute howler. And then, so you're thinking to yourself, he has to be playing games. I think he's had to be playing games ever since he broke into the Rangers first team. Those 2 games against Celtic and Alishkert, he's bided his time. I don't blame him for looking to try his luck elsewhere. I think he could be a number 1 for a host of teams, both in the UK and abroad. It will be interesting to see where he could potentially end up. Would you be sorry to see him go, Joshua?
I guess if you're McCrorie, you're looking at the fact that Butland's come in, and Jack Butland he's come in to be the first choice keeper. I don't think there's any doubt about that. No, for multiple reasons, obviously his profile, but also the money that's been spent on him. He's not being he's not coming in to sit on the bench. But also, if you read between the lines, I don't think Butland is coming up to Rangers to have a good season and necessarily get a big move back down south. Maybe holds aspirations of that one day, but I think he'll want a place where he's settled, where he can buy into a project. He's kind of done all that. He sat on the bench at Man United. He's been the young and up-and-coming keeper in England who's made his debut. I think he was the youngest ever England goalkeeper. You know what I mean? I don't think you could argue if maybe you're trying to convince McCrorie to stay, hang around for an extra season, but then he's done that for a few seasons, hasn't he? And then if you hang around for an extra season, what's going to change between this season and next season if Butland does a really good year?
Yeah.
So I think that's the difficulty in that regard. In replacing McCrorie, yes, you've probably got to get a new number 2, because I think John McLaughlin, he's kind of had his chance probably at Rangers. I think that's fair to say, and obviously had a few difficult moments last season. And when you've had those difficult moments, it's probably quite hard to be trusted again as a goalkeeper unless you come back and have a few really big performances. He also did have that big performance with PSV as well, it should be noted. But McCrorie, I think, gives you something different as well, because his best trait for me is how aggressive he is off his line. That's what stood out in the Old Firm game. I think that's why he's had 2 really good performances in Old Firm games. If you have a goalkeeper like that, it enables you to play that little bit higher. It enables your line to play higher because you've got that cover behind you. Butland, I imagine, will be more proactive off his line than McGregor. Might not be quite as quick as McCrorie, but obviously you're banking on the quality that he has, that you just need to get him to show consistently. And then I don't think there's going to be any question about who's Rangers number 1. So it's a bit of a difficult situation for McCrorie, because he is an ideal number 2, given his age, given he knows the club, given that he's got obviously the mentality to come into big games and do it. And not everyone can do that. I think that's quite difficult as a goalkeeper. Yeah. But then as a player, 25 years old, I think you can respect the fact that if he wants to go and play games and make a career away from Rangers, he's given them sufficient time, I guess, to get games over the last number of years. And if you're Robbie McCrorie and you're looking back at the last 2 seasons, I think you've got good justification to be frustrated and feel that, even before Beale coming back to the club, that you should have played more games because of the issues that Rangers had in goals over the course of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, it reminds me very much, it's a similar situation when Paul Le Guen came in and Alan McGregor was biding his time, and he brought in Lionel Letizia, and he was really thinking about moving on. He had spent loan spells at St Johnstone and Dunfermline, and he felt disillusioned when Le Guin brought in his own man, but he bombed, of course. We all know about Lionel Letizia in goal. Then McGregor got his chance and never looked back. It's very similar to this situation. Now, Jack Butland's came in. He's not played football, a lot of football in the last couple of seasons. It was ropey at Stoke City when he left there. So, I mean, the jury's still out on Jack. He has to hopefully hit the ground running. He's a top goalkeeper when he was coming through the ranks there at Stoke. Let's hope he can take over from Alan McGregor and be that undisputed number one. But with McCrory leaving, that does leave Rangers with John McLaughlin, of course, as you say, Joshua, and Kieran Wright. Kieran Wright's just signed a new deal. He'll be sticking around. You mentioned McLaughlin. How's this for a left field number 2 proposition? Just keeping Alan McGregor around. Ticks a homegrown box.
What's the okay? Give me the pros and cons.
Well, he's going to be. Listen, we know Alan would still want to play. He's got his testimonial coming up, but I reckon. I mean, we need to tick the homegrown box for European competition. He would do just that. It would be the number 2. In fact, even the number 3. Promote Kieran Wright to number 2, and just have him there, basically as a training buddy, if you like, and a bit of character in the dressing room. Is that too outrageous? I know the comments coming in are disagreeing with me.
Diplomatically, it doesn't get my vote, Derek. I think that you do see down south Scott Carson, who else? Lee Grant. Try and think of other examples, but the profile of player I'm looking at. Someone like Scott Carson isn't going to play, but it's going to be third choice. But the difference is there that Man City don't really need to worry about their resources when they need a new keeper. They're just going to go and spend a lot of money on one. So, I think that is left field. You're right.
Yeah, I've lost the plot. So
you're right to raise the homegrown point, because that is obviously important. I can't think off the top of my head where Rangers are with that, but you consider where other players are and where they might end up. Someone like Alex Lowry, whether he stays or goes on loan, this all needs to come under consideration. I'm sure that if McCrory is to go, there'll be more movement there, and Beale will want a keeper who can challenge Jack Butland, because you need someone, as McCrory has shown, I think, towards the end of the season, who can come in and step up and have big moments. McGregor, obviously, over the course of his career, has had more big moments than most, but an end of a career comes for everyone, doesn't it? And his has lasted longer than most, and obviously he's had an absolutely fantastic career over the course, which is a testament to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone is disagreeing with me. So I think I've fallen at the wrong side of bed, I think, this morning. But in terms of potential number 2, there is some comments coming in. Dean Milne says, McCrory leaving is a blow to goalkeeper depth if Butland gets injured. Surely spend a little bit of money on backup, Clark or Kelly. Again, those two, I mean, they're getting first-team football in the main, Joshua. It's going to be one, but they're going to have to, if they're going to go in the market and bring someone in, if John McLaughlin is to depart. Remember, I don't think his contract's up until, was it next summer, if I'm led to believe, John McLaughlin. I would have no qualms about keeping McLaughlin there. I think if he's content being that number 2, I think in the main he can be relied upon to fill in at various points. But it's just, as I mentioned, Jack Butland has to be the number 1. I think there's a comment coming in is from Dean saying if he gets injured, fingers crossed, touch wood, that is not the case. But it's certainly something that Rangers may be thinking about in terms of the goalkeeping positions. And it'll be interesting to see where Robbie potentially may end up as well. Alan Hall says, do you think we'll sign a keeper to replace McCrory? If so, would it likely be a homegrown player? One to keep an eye on that one, that's for sure. Other transfer news, of course, that we've seen some rumours circulating that Fashion Sakala could be heading out the door as well. Just John saying I was hearing 4 million for Sakala. That true? We're trying to firm things up at the moment, guys. We'll hopefully get more concrete news on that at some point today. But Fashion Sakala is going to be heading out the door for £4 million, Joshua. I think that's pretty tidy sum. I know that he has changed his social media profile pictures and what have you. I think that's the telltale sign that he could be heading off.
Yeah, from what I know, I don't think the move's necessarily that close, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him now leave at some point in the window. Again, you look at who's already come in, you look at the numbers. We've kind of spoken about it all week, Derek, haven't we? numbers at the top of the park that Rangers have, when you consider that, Roofe, although I'm not saying that he should be relied upon, he is going to be around this season. You've got to consider all these different places in the squad and the amount that Dessers is going to play. Sima, obviously Danilo, the strong links continue to him. Sam Lammers, I think, is going to play more as that number 10, but has the ability to move up as well. So you're probably looking at 4 players across those forward 2 positions, 5 being more than enough, with the ability to obviously move to one striker at points if needed. Sakala, his numbers really stood out towards the second half of last season. And again, we're going to go into more detail in this in the members video this afternoon, looking at his numbers. Did he overperform, underperform? I think an important point on Sakala is the type of, he scored a lot away from home, and again, he was that extra goal scorer for Beale in his starting 11. I think it was 19 of 23 games that he started in the league, and that really shows you that Beale is going to play with 2 forwards continually, because he just wants as many goal scorers on the pitch as possible. But I think the type of role that Sakala was playing really allowed him to play his best football, because he wasn't a winger tracking the fullback. Again, to go back to that image, which I'll just pull it up one more time, Derek, from earlier, because it shows Sakala as well. If you look at him on the left side of this front 3, and again, this is just before he scores that first goal, Rangers front 3 stay high. It allows them to really take advantage of transitional opportunities, and the game against Hibs was a perfect example of that. Beale's football, I think, away from home has been able to take advantage of when teams play aggressively. Hearts and Hibs games that, Hearts away especially, is not always a game that Gerrard's Rangers found easy. But I think the preference for for keeping an attacking team and being aggressive away from home and using teams' aggression against them worked really well. The game that always sticks out in my mind, maybe in opposition to that, is that Aberdeen game away from home, where again Rangers had more than enough opportunities to win, but Sakala, for his pros, has his cons as well, and that's probably why, despite those numbers, 4 million is the fee being mooted. Because is he going to be a player that you're going to build around, or you can really count upon consistently in the big moments? And I think when you look back to especially those 2 games at Hampden, those misses that he had, he did a lot of good last season, but Beale needs players at the top end of the pitch who he can really rely upon, because he didn't have that at all last season. I think if you look, again, as touched upon yesterday, box to box, a lot to be positive about how Rangers controlled games, the defensive shape. He needs players at the top end of the park who are going to be able to do it consistently for him, who he can rely upon. And again, although Sakala has done well, and even Colak, when he's played, has done okay, he wants upgrades, obviously, and he wants players that are going to take Rangers to the next level. And that's good, because that's how you're going to be successful, is by pushing the boundaries, not settling with the squad where it is, and using kind of your aggression in the transfer market to then go and fund players who are going to be able to take you where you want to get to.
Yeah, got to admit, I'm going to miss Fashion if he does depart. I know he has you ripping your hair out at times, of course. But like you say, Joshua, his numbers are pretty decent in terms of his goal return. And he's a very infectious character. I'm sure he'll do well wherever he goes. But that is money not to be sniffed at if it's to be believed. We are making inquiries, folks. Hopefully we can firm up the latest on Fashion Sakala at some point today, and we'll bring you the latest on that. Scott Mackay says, I just wrote a blog on how Sakala would have been a great player this season for us. I'll have to bin it. Yeah, it looks like it, Scott. Aldo Joshua says, what time is the members pod today?
Good question. Hopefully it'll be up by about 4 or 5, Aldo, depending when I get through my other things I've got to do. But yeah, they're great, because they just allow us to go into a little bit more detail about these topics, and for those people who do like the stats and analysis side, we're able to touch on that quite a lot as well. So before dinner, Aldo, I'll give you that as a time barometer.
Fantastic stuff. Before I forget, folks, just a reminder of the Rangers Review live event, which takes place on Friday, the 28th of July. We hope you can join us. There's still some tickets available for it. Yesterday, we announced our special guest who will be joining us for the night will be Barry Ferguson. So it's sure to be a cracking evening. Myself, Joshua will be there, Johnny, and Stevie. Also, there'll be some brilliant prizes to be given out as well. So I cannot wait for that one. The first time we've taken the morning briefing live. Let's hope we're on time. We've certainly been bang on time this week. So if I've got anything to do about it, then I'm sure we'll be bang on time. Doors open at 6:30, folks. So please, if you want tickets for that one, then the link to the New Edmiston House website link is in the description box. Just give that a click and you can go and get yourself tickets for what should be a real sensational evening over there at New Edmiston House. Right, I also wanted to talk about Scott Arfield. Josh, of course, you spoke to him yesterday. He's moved to the MLS with Charlotte FC and doing very well by all accounts. He's integrated in there pretty quickly, but he was obviously talking about his time at Rangers. Some fascinating stuff, big talking points about his time there at Ibrox, and of course his farewell from Rangers as well. I'll just read you a quick line which I thought was good. He said it was amazing talking about his final salute, of course, at Ibrox, this farewell game. He says it was amazing, absolutely incredible. My family still talk about it now. I have to say I did get a wee bit lucky. I had to do a Sky interview straight away as we were doing the lap of honour, myself and the 4 others leaving. I did the interview and then got to really milk it by myself. It was a moment I was so thankful for. If you come to a club the size of Rangers, you want to make an impression and you want that respect and friendship to be replicated both ways. It was an amazing, amazing moment. One I'll never forget, but I did get a wee bit lucky with that interview, so I need to thank Sky for that. Really insightful interviews. Always a pleasure to speak to is Scott Arfield, Joshua, and good to see him doing well over there in America.
Yeah, what a guy. I mean, you understand why no one in football ever has a bad word to say about Scott Arfield, because he was just a really top guy who has a lot of time for you, which is nice. You can watch the interview, press conference on YouTube, read it on the website. But yeah, as the comment says, they're a proper gentleman, and great to see him doing well. You know, he had ambition of prolonging his career. I don't think it was out of the question. He had some sort of role at Rangers this season, but he very much wanted to still be playing a lot of football, which again I think is admirable. I think it speaks to the kind of enthusiastic personality that he is. Spoke so highly of Michael Beale. One of my favourite comments was, and you need to kind of watch the interview to get the humour of this, but emphasising that his belief that Beale has more than 24 hours in a day just because of how much he gets done. And I guess if you look at his role after Ross Wilson's left, then that certainly corroborates with the amount that he is doing. But yeah, good to see him that he started well over in the MLS. I'm sure he'll be really popular over there as well. And someone that, although I don't think he's ever going to come back in a playing capacity, what I like about it is when he speaks about wanting to come back to Rangers, he doesn't necessarily say, I'll be a manager in 5 years. He speaks about getting involved with the academy or just being involved in some capacity going forward. And although there's a risk in always just getting ex-players back to be coaches, I think there's also real value in having certain personalities who represent the club and what they're about. And that's why I think Beale's spoken so highly of Arfield in the past. Obviously, they have a really good relationship they enjoy. And I think as well, Derek, just reflecting on, he left alongside McGregor, Morelos, Kent and Helander for free that window, and put in the piece, he didn't have Morelos' goals in Europe, the number of goals. He didn't have McGregor's appearances, not maybe as many European moments as Kent, although Arfield did have a lot of big moments over his Rangers career. But I think he was always just someone who really connected with the fan base because of his kind of honesty on the pitch and likable personality, obviously all the quality he had as well, but really I think understood the significance of playing for the club and someone that leaves, I think, really with a hugely popular legacy as well. So hope he does really well in the MLS. Very generous with his time, and you can watch or read that on the website and the YouTube channel as mentioned.
Yeah, you certainly can. Lots of nice comments coming in with regards to it. Marcus says, morning, guys. Thanks for the Arfield piece, Joshua. Great to read his thoughts, and he and his family are settled in the US. Hope to see him back in the future. See you all at Edmiston House on the 28th. Absolutely fantastic, buddy. And there's another comment that was coming in just on that live show, Connor Fleming. How long's the live show? Roughly 2 to 3 hours. I think it's around about 2 hours. all in round about that, Joshua, unless
there's an interval as well. So doors open at 6:30. We'll have one section, kind of the live podcast, 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll have a specific section with Barry as well after the break. So it should be a great evening. Really looking forward to it and meeting some of the people who watch along.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you all there. Let's get to one or few comments before we wrap up. Firstly, Alan Swan's become a YouTube member. Thank you very much, Alan. It's greatly appreciated. You can become a member of our YouTube channel, folks. As Joshua said earlier on, you do get up to 3 to 5 extra videos per week, exclusive to members. Only £2.99 a month. Over 300 of you have already subscribed. So thank you very much to you all. All hearing great feedback as well from that. So you can also watch this video if you watch it later on in the ad-free. I know we get some grumblings about the amount of ads on the video if you don't watch it live. So you can also get that. And so it's well worth signing up for. One or two comments I just wanted to touch on. This is something that caught my eye yesterday. And I know we shouldn't read or look too much into training videos, Joshua. They need to be doing it.
We're all going to do, aren't we? Who doesn't love a training video?
Yeah. Well, I like to go by Sam Lammers, and he obviously set up Kamar Roof in the video yesterday. Aldo says, Roof's looking like a machine in training. Hope he can stay fit. He was looking pretty fit, but it's one of those ones, isn't it, where it's all right doing it in training, Joshua, but Rangers need him doing it in actual games. And by God, if Rangers can keep this boy fit next season, then that's a huge, huge boost.
Yeah, I must say I'm more excited about Lammers and what he's going to give you. You just so two-footed, and obviously I've done a few pieces on him by now, looking at scout report, speaking to a few of his ex-teammates as well, and I think he can really thrive in that number 10 position behind the striker, adding goals as well, and sometimes maybe playing up a line. Roof, of course, again, how many? We've probably honestly had this conversation about 100 times since we started this podcast. The reason he was here in the first place, because if he wasn't injured, he'd be a Premier League player. I don't think there's much question about that. Beale, I think Rangers have had to probably keep him around because he's contracted for another year, so there's that.
Yeah.
And there's more value in taking a chance on can he give you 10 goals over the course of the season, than kind of just paying him off and offloading his wages. He obviously had that surgery towards the tail end of last season. Rangers took that approach with John Souttar, where they kind of took him at the firing line altogether, tried to press the underlying issue and solve it, and that seems to have worked at time of speaking. So fingers crossed with Roof it does as well, because even if it's just the fact that he starts 1 in 5 games, but he's your option to come off the bench, you're going to struggle to sign a player who has better striker instincts, I think, and who can just get on the end of crosses and obviously do other things aside from that as well. So, yeah, fingers crossed. Won't hold my breath on that. Really looking forward to seeing Sam Lammers play. I think he's going to be a really successful signing. Yeah, let's hope so. And as I mentioned yesterday, fair credit to the Rangers TV team out there in Germany. Some outstanding content, especially the golf cart buggy video of John Lundstrom and Kieran Dowell, as Aldo says. What a waste of my day. Watched it for 7 minutes, Joshua. That's 7 minutes I'll never get back. But I mean, I can see that. I can see a few more of those. I know there's one actually. I think this morning there's one being posted, isn't there? Where there's a bit more dialogue in it. Did you watch the Lundstrom and the Dowell golf cart journey? They got a few minutes into it. The funny thing is, I turned it on thinking, okay, here we're finally going to get a bit of insight from them, and put them, at least they're not with a member of the media team, they're just together and they're talking. But they held completely deadpan faces for the whole time, and I don't think they were acting. So it was good content, and I've enjoyed that. I'm a big fan of the big question one. I like that. So good content coming out of Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll wrap up. Of course, someone we've not necessarily spoke about at length is Danilo. Mark says, any more news on Danilo? Danilo, of course, the Brazilian striker at Feyenoord, a player that Rangers are interested in bringing to Ibrox. I think with the prospective sale of Antonio Colak, Joshua, this may speed up proceedings. I've seen a lot of mumblings online about a deal being close. Again, it's one that we'll try and firm up at some point later on today. But that is certainly one I think that is edging ever closer.
Yeah, obviously, and logic tells you if Rangers are shipping out in the striker department, they'll be bringing in as well. They've got one player there in Dessers that is your undisputed first choice, and I think they'll be looking at another, likely Danilo, to come in and be that second number 9. We've got a scout report on the website. I was watching a bit of him last night. Exciting profile if you look at the fact that he was signed by Ajax, which always seems like a seal of approval. Real commonality between a lot of the players this summer, the clubs they've played for, and I guess the quality that Beale's just trying to tap into and get out of players. Still at a really good age, someone who looks like he's going to be a real occupier of the box as well, because if you compare him to someone like Lammers, I think he's going to come towards the ball more often. Sima, I think he's someone who's not necessarily going to always play with his back to goal. I think you'll see him starting off either side more often and making those runs into the box to score. I think if you were to sign Danilo, that would really complete the complement of forwards you have in that area. And going from having, again, you think back to that Scottish Cup semi-final where Rangers options in the final third were so limited. If you compare that to having Lammers, Sima, Dessers and Danilo as a front four option with Roof there as well and Cantwell to play from deep, Raskin, that's a really exciting front 6 or 7 with subs in there as well. And that's a front 6 that you'd be confident can take Beale where he wants to be, and you'd be confident going into a league season with European demands and cup demands that it gives you enough depth and variation for different games across the course of the season.
Yeah, most definitely. Right, folks, I think we'll wrap up there. Hugster, just with a nice comment, incidentally. Great interview with Derek Curry. Really interesting stuff. You can find this on our YouTube and Facebook site, wherever you consume our Rangers Review content, folks. Derek Curry, former Hong Kong Rangers star, a big Rangers fan, went over there over 50 years ago now. Played against Pele, Eusebio, you name it. He's had quite a remarkable life. He's actually got an autobiography out that I'm reading just now. It's really interesting, but yeah, cracking guy. Still keeps an eye on his boyhood club. So he talks about next season and the likes as well. But do go and check it out. I met him at the OSA convention last week, so it really was fascinating stuff to have a chat with him. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. We will be back again on Monday. But until then, enjoy your Friday and your weekend. Bye for now.